The official trailer has just dropped for Joker Folie, the sequel to the 2019 film that brought home an Oscar for Joaquin Phoenix. And in this we get to see that the music was with Arthur Fleck all along. Stick around to find out what else we know about this upcoming film. I'm Brennan Sem for the New Wave Nerds. Subscribe down below for more nerd content and commentary. Now let's get into the news. So to start things off here, we've got the Joker Folie official trailer from the Warner Brothers Pictures YouTube channel. Let's give things a quick listen here.
Arthur Fleck hit Gotham like a hurricane.
The trial of the century.
I love the way the light comes through on that bridge.
Martyr. Well, he's not. There's a monster.
Joaquin Phoenix's laugh in this is so interesting. The adoring crowds. Oh, he's basking in the revels.
When I saw you,
the whole world smiles with you.
for once in my life, I didn't feel so alone
Performances in
anymore.
this movie by Johnny Cash himself. Shouldn't even grab the biggest TV. I love that shot, that frame. That's some beautiful composition.
In my life, I have someone who needs me.
How about you, Arthur? Do you still
Brandon
think you're a
Gleeson, I
star?
forgot he was going to be in this.
Showtime.
Alright, so that's all we're going to play here. If you want to watch the full trailer, go ahead and give it a watch. That second minute definitely gets a little intense. There's a lot going on there. We get to see a little bit between Joker and Lady Gaga's Harley Quinn. It looks really, really interesting to me. It looks like we're striking a very similar tone to the original, which I think is obviously a smart choice. That film is incredible, and that's obviously not a hot take to say. It was nominated for many, many Oscars. It actually only won 2 for Joaquin Phoenix, and I believe the second one was for music composition, but definitely got nominated for multiple different categories. It struck a chord at such an interesting time. It was an incredibly well-made film. I definitely cannot say enough good things about it. And I'm glad that it looks like with this one we're getting something that seems to be in a similar vein. We're not veering too far from the original, which I think is, again, a smart choice. Lean into the thing that made your first movie really excel, what made it what it was, what made it into that moment, right? Because when Joker came out, it came at a weird time, and it was definitely an event film, which is weird to say because it doesn't strike one as an event film, but there was definitely a culture that had been built up surrounding this movie when it had been released. And I think upon, rewatch, I think it definitely holds up. It's more than just a product of its time, which is something that a lot of movies that hit on that sort of event level feel, when you go back and rewatch them, they just don't have the same oomph. There's something different about experiencing these movies with multiple other people. You get that definitely with, if we're talking about superhero movies, I get that when I'm watching like Spider-Man No Way Home or Avengers Endgame. They're still good movies, but they don't feel quite the same when you don't have that first initial hit with the audience, when you don't get that those payoffs, those reveals of all of the heroes coming through the portals, or in the case of Spider-Man, the different variations of Spider-Man. There's something very different. And when you watch Spider-Man No Way Home, it feels awkward when the other Spider-Men show up, because you could tell it was written to have a break for applause, so that the fans could revel in the reemergence of these different iterations of their hero. And so it's a little bit different and a little bit awkward watching it at home by yourself versus in the theater. I don't think Joker suffers from that, mostly because, it's obviously very different subject matter, right? It is a very grounded human movie in the way that like Spider-Man and Endgame aren't. And so even when you're outside of the event, even when you're outside of the massive marketing campaign that was put forth, the movie still holds up on its own. And so I'm hoping that we can continue that and stay sort of how we are, or sort of how the first one ended up with the second one. I hope that we can continue to keep that going. Now, to learn a little bit more about the film itself, I have this article here from IGN. Joker Folie Deux trailer showcases the musical wild world of the much-anticipated sequel. The latest trailer for Joker Folie Deux showcases the musical wild world of the much-anticipated sequel to the 2019 original, including a few teases of Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga singing as Joker and Harley Quinn, respectively. Joker Folie Deux will be released in theaters on October 4th, 2024, and finds, quote, Arthur Fleck institutionalized at Arkham, awaiting trial for his crimes as Joker. While struggling with his dual identity, Arthur not only stumbles upon true love, but also finds the music that's always been inside of him. Wow, isn't that sweet? The trailer gives us our best look yet at the musical elements of Joker Folie Deux, which have been hinted at for a long time. We get to see Joker singing a few words of Frank Sinatra's For Once in My Life, and Joker and Harley Quinn singing Sinatra's Get Happy. When Joker Folie Deux was first being reported, it was said it was going to be a musical. Director Todd Phillips has since come out and said, while it's not a full musical, music is an essential element, and this trailer really shows that. For those worried this will change the feel of this sequel, Phillips also said Joker Folie Deux won't veer too far from the original, and that Phoenix has always had the music in him. Well, of course he has the music in him. He was at one point the Man in Black himself in a movie that I cannot remember the title of anymore. Man, that's really going to bother me. But it's good to hear from Todd Phillips himself that this is going to continue to feel like the original Joker. It's called Walk the Line, by the way. I had to look it up because it was going to irritate me. What a great movie. But Joker, I think this is going to be really interesting. You know, I'm glad, like I said, that Phillips himself has said that this isn't going to veer too far from the original. I hope that that means more than just like tonally. I hope equally, you know, it means that the movie itself is going to feel very similar. I hope that we've got the same style of cinematography and of music composition. I hope that it very much is a spiritual sequel to the original film. You know, the first film itself is just so immensely beautiful. Just obviously speaking from a story standpoint, it's wonderfully well written, but visually the film itself is so striking. There are so many scenes that really just take you back because of how beautiful they are. The camera work is absolutely amazing. I thought it was absolutely, you know, a joy to watch and to watch multiple times, right? Because it's one of those things where when you're watching it, or rather when you're rewatching it, you notice things that you didn't necessarily notice the first time, right? There are things happening that in camera, that is, there are scenes, there are parallels that you wouldn't have necessarily noticed the first time or on the first viewing. And I did just look it up. The cinematographer for the original is Lawrence Sher, and according to IMDb, at least, he is attached to the second one as well. So hopefully, Taco Bell Fry Again. Oh, he also did Black Adam, which, you know, so we've got quite a weird smorgasbord here. Godzilla, King of the Monsters, Hangover Part 2, Dukes of Hazzard. That's funny. Interesting. Yeah, so we've definitely got Captain Jack. We've definitely got a really weird smattering of film credits here from Lawrence Sher. But I hope that that Folie Deux feels much more like 2019 Joker and not like any of the other films that this cinematographer has done. Hopefully we get to stay in the same vein. Obviously, I don't think it's likely we're going to see the cinematography of the Dukes of Hazzard here. You know, it's obviously going to be very similar to Joker. I hope that I think they all understand how much of like I said, an event Joker originally was. And I hope that they don't necessarily try too hard to recreate that feeling. I think if you attempt to create that event nature, that sort of environment around the film, and that's your main focus, I think that's where you get caught up on details that ultimately hurt the film. First and foremost, I think you need to focus on the film itself and make the film stand up to the original one, right? I think that's where your focus needs to be. You need to try and exceed the previous film, not in how well it was received, but in the actual craft of making it. And if they feel similar, if they have, the same basic idea surrounding them, they have the same vision, then I think ultimately you will recapture that sort of event nature that we've been discussing here. And I think that is where you want to put your focus, on the film and not on the meta aspect, not on the marketing, not on the culture surrounding it. It needs to be on the film itself. And that's how you get a great film like the original Joker, right? I'm sure in creating this, they weren't thinking, oh, this is going to, speak to a lot of people right now, and because of that it's going to become a massive feature, it's going to become a massive staple. I don't think that was the thought process in making the original one. I think the first one, behind the camera, they were thinking, and in front of the camera, they were thinking, how do I put my best foot forward to make this movie as amazing as it can possibly be? Outside of anything else, how do I do my best work here? And I hope that that's the same mindset that we have moving forward in Joker Folie à Deux. I'm really interested to see what happens, especially in the relationship between Arthur Fleck and Harley Quinn. I'm interested to know what their chemistry is going to be like, and I'm interested to know how they approach Harley Quinn in particular. Obviously, this is going to be a bit of a different take from what is her traditional origin story in Batman the Animated Series, which is where the character was introduced and then later brought into comics. The way that the story works is that Harleen Quinzel is Joker's court-appointed psychiatrist, and basically there's this cult of personality built around him, and Harleen Quinzel falls in love, and so then that's how she eventually begins her fall from grace, from respected psychiatrist to clown princess of crime. I guess I don't know if Harley Quinn actually has, a title like that. Clown princess of crime definitely does not exactly roll off the tongue. It's sort of iffy. I don't think I like it. I just did a quick 2-second Google search, and I'm not seeing any cool titles. They definitely got to work for that. They definitely got to work on that. I don't know. I guess you sort of want to have something that's sort of removed from the Joker, right? You don't necessarily want it to be just in relation to him. You want the character to sort of stand up on her own 2 feet. Okay, but here's what I will say. Before we get into the actual movie itself, on the character of Harley Quinn, I'm a little over it. She's just so overused. Like, the character is really interesting, and she's been used in so many of my favorite Batman stories. I think she's really fun to include in a story. I think she's a really, really interesting character. Her origin is always fascinating. The relationship between her and Joker and the Bats is always really cool. But she's just so overused now. She's so overused. Like, you have other characters that could deserve a little bit of screen time. Harley Quinn doesn't need to have, 3 movies and animated series and a bunch of her own stuff. Like, she deserves a few things. She's an interesting character who should be seen in live action. She should be seen on the screen and in comics. But don't you think it's a little heavy-handed? I don't know. That's just my opinion. Maybe it's just because we've got is like one style of Harley Quinn. I'm really interested to see what they do with her in Batman and the Caped Crusader, the animated series that is going to be coming to Prime Video. The art style that they took for her is very different from what we normally see. So I'm curious to see if they change the character itself. or if it is just going to be, you know, the artistry, the costuming that's different. I hope they do something different. I want to see what they do with that. But Harley Quinn is just so prolific, and I think maybe my issue is just that it's so much in so little time. Like, it's like Harley Quinn, she was only created in the 90s, like I said, on Batman the Animated Series. 1992 was when it was. Oh man, September 11th, 1992. That's awkward. Do we think Harley Quinn brought down the two towers? I don't know. Twin Towers, the two towers is from Lord of the Rings. I do that every time. I don't know. But so the character herself is very, she has a short history, only 30 years worth of comics, which is not, you know, her fault. She was just created then, you know, what are you going to do? But she's had a relatively minimal impact on the DC mythos up until a couple years ago, up until the first Suicide Squad. And then since then, it's like every single thing, every other DC property, it feels, has Harley Quinn in it in some capacity. And so it's just so much in such a short time that I feel overwhelmed with it. Like, they're forcing it so much. You don't need this character to appear in 1,000,001 different things. I mean, look, I understand that she sells. I understand that she moves product. She brings eyes. A lot of people enjoy the character. But there are other characters as well that do deserve some time on the screen. And I'm not even talking about, like, why are we not getting more Batman stuff? Why aren't we seeing, you know, Green Lantern and Martian Manhunter? I mean, there are other, like, lesser known female characters that I think are interesting enough that they deserve to be raised in their own space. Like, we've got an animated Harley Quinn series. Why couldn't we have had an animated Batgirl series? Batgirl's amazing. Barbara Gordon is so cool. She has such an interesting arc, but we don't have anything whatsoever. I mean, we got a short-lived, a since-shelved live-action movie that was evidently terrible, but that's it. Like, this is a character who so many people enjoy and who has been around for quite a long time. When was Batgirl first introduced? Let's see here. Barbara Gordon first appeared as Batgirl in Detective Comics in 1967. 1967. So it was like Batman was around for 30 years and then they introduced Batgirl. Like, this is a character who's been around for so long. Why does she not have her own anything? And again, I'm not saying we necessarily have to have, I'm not saying you should have given her a movie instead of Harley Quinn. Just why isn't she getting any playtime whatsoever? Why is there no animated series, animated movie? Why isn't there anything? I don't know. It just feels like Harley Quinn is so forced. At this point, they've done so much with her in so little time that I would like to see them move to other stories. I would like to see other characters get their day in the sun. But I don't know. As it pertains to this movie, to what we're actually supposed to be discussing today, there are some really interesting theories about Harley Quinn. I'm of the opinion, and I don't think this is true, but I think it would be really cool. I think it would be really interesting if the interactions between Arthur and Harley, not all of them, obviously, because they have to meet at some point in the film, but especially in the early acts of the film, I think it would be really interesting if Arthur Fleck is a figment of Harley Quinn's imagination. Like, she doesn't actually speak to him, they never see each other, but she has this sort of parasocial relationship with him because she identifies so closely with him. And she herself is obviously a little, how do I put this politely? She's got a few screws loose, which isn't exactly polite, but it gets the point across. You know, so I think it would be interesting if, in the beginning, we see them have some interactions, but they're not real. And they're figments of Harley's imagination, not Arthur Fleck. I think then you get to explore this Harley Quinn character a little bit more. And I think that would be really fascinating. It would obviously be a different take from what we traditionally see from her for an origin story. But of course, you still get to hit on some of the major aspects and themes of the original. In this situation, if Arthur Fleck is a figment of Harleen Quinzel's imagination, you still get the fact that Harley is obsessed with Joker, right? She's obsessed with this person. He fills her with hope, with love, with affection, with whatever. She gives him hope, right? You get to capitalize on that aspect while still having a different and original origin story. You still get to have the themes of the comic, so it's not too devoid, but you got to do your own take. I think that would be really, really interesting. Like I said, I don't think that's necessarily going to happen. I don't think that's what's going on here, but I have pulled up this article from IGN with a couple that aggregates a couple of different theories about Harley Quinzel and Joker in this film. The first one is Joker and Harley's relationship is an inverse of the comics. The trailer confirmed, so this was the original trailer that was released in April. The trailer confirmed a significant change in Harley's story, with her now being a patient at Arkham Asylum rather than a psychiatrist like in the comics. Some fans think the story will flip the script further by positioning Harley as the antagonist who influences Arthur to embrace his own clown persona rather than him corrupting her. Speculation arose on both X and Reddit, where one person quizzed, "Anyone else get the feeling that the Joker-Harley relationship is going to be an inverse of their comic portrayal? I'm thinking Arthur is trying not to relapse back into his Joker persona, but Harley is the one influencing him to embrace it." I don't know why I did it in that voice. That's just what the average Reddit poster sounds like in my head. It is curious to me. Always, IGN, the tweets that they choose to embed in their articles, they all have such low engagement. One like, well, hidden likes, 3 likes. Like, there are more active voices in the space who get much more traction, who likely have opinions that more people agree with, but that's besides the point. I think that would be interesting. I don't know if that's likely. Based off of this most recent trailer, it doesn't look like Arthur Fleck is really attempting to quit the Joker life. It doesn't look like he's trying to move on and become a better person and atone for his sins. I don't think that's happening. And so I don't know if this theory necessarily holds a bunch of water. It would be interesting. It would be interesting to see, to have her corrupt him rather than the other way around. That would definitely be fun. Now, next up, Harley is a figment of Joker's imagination. So the inverse of my theory that I put forth earlier. This popular theory is that Harley only exists in Joker's imagination rather than being a real-life figure in the movie. Some people waved red flags when they heard her telling him and the audience, "I'm nobody," while others examined the visual clues that might suggest he has once again made it all up in his mind. Now, this is possible to me, at least. This seems, again, I don't know if likely, but I think it would certainly be an interesting place to take this. It seems evident that much of this movie is going to take place in a sort of pseudo psychotic state, filled with hallucinations and visions. Obviously, in the official teaser trailer and at the end of the one that we played at the beginning of this video, there's an interaction where Arthur Fleck is confronted by the Joker in what is presumably a dream sequence of some variety. The question is, how much of the movie is going to be real and how much of it is going to be false? And I don't think that's really going to be answered in the movie. I think that's going to be a question that we're sort of forced to ask ourselves throughout the entire viewing. And I think that that's one that honestly I hope that they don't answer all that much. I hope they sort of leave it up in the air. I like the idea that Harley is a figment of the Joker's imagination. I like the idea that it's sort of hinted at, but it's left open to interpretation. I think that's going to make for some pretty interesting sequences, some pretty interesting scenes. But I don't know. I mean, Harley as a figment. I mean, obviously there's going to be, interactions between the two of them which are not real. that there are going to be interactions between the two of them. The question remains, is Harley as a character, as a person, does she exist in the universe? I think if you make it so that she doesn't at all, and in fact it's a coping mechanism for Joker, that could be a really, really interesting story to tell. But moving on further down the line here, we've got one last one. The musical moments take place in the minds of Joker and Harley. Folie à deux is defined as a delusion or mental illness shared by two people in close association. And after watching the trailer, fans are convinced this implies that Joker and Harley are sharing the same psychological challenges, with the movie's musical moments being a manifestation of that as opposed to reality. One person on X described the symphonious, that is such a fun words, the symphonious scenes as the special place Joker and Harley go to escape the real world. And another pointed out the similarities between a choreographed number and a real-life scene of the twirling twosome. Others wondered if the delusions derive from one half of the pair. That would be kind of interesting. If the musical moments of this are... So Harley actually has no... In the reality of the film, that is, Harley is removed from the musical sequences. She is not a musical person. And as Todd Phillips has said, the music was within Joker all along. So if the musical sequences are manifestations again of that psychological challenge, as it states earlier, but they happen only in the mind of the Joker, that would be really interesting. That would be weird. I don't know how, they would have to sort of, I don't know how they would do that in a way that sort of feels satisfying, but that is actually something that's really interesting to me. I don't know if that would be my preferred method of storytelling here, but that would be really, really cool. But now we're going to round things out by taking a brief look at the cast list. So let's see. Obviously, we're starring Joaquin Phoenix as Arthur Fleck. We also have Zazie Beetz returning as Sophie Dumond, I would have presumed. Maybe it's just Dumond. But this is Arthur Fleck's neighbor in the original Joker. I'm curious how she's going to factor into this movie. But I did enjoy that character and the little interaction between the two of them in the hallways and in the elevators. I thought that was fun. And those scenes did a really, really good job of displaying the mind state of Arthur Fleck, right? In some ways, those sequences do a better job than any other in the film in getting an actual mindset into the brain of Arthur Fleck. Also in the cast list, we have Catherine Keener and Brendan Gleeson. I might have said Brandon earlier, but it's Brendan Gleeson, who's presumably playing in Arkham Guard. Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn. We also have Steve Coogan, Ken Lung, and John Lacey. So we've got quite an interesting cast list here. Obviously directed by Todd Phillips as well, written by Todd Phillips and Scott Silver, who I believe wrote the script for the first one as well. And then returning, as I mentioned earlier, for the cinematography, we have Lawrence Sher. I don't know, but I'm glad to see that we've got pretty much the same cast and crew as the first one did. That sort of further beats down the point that we're going to have a pretty spiritual a sequel that is a pretty spiritual Sorry, what am I trying to say here? A sequel that is pretty much a spiritual successor to the original. That was a really difficult sentence. And I think that that's going to be good. I think that's going to lend itself to an amazing movie. But as for the relationship between Arthur Fleck and Harley Quinn, whether or not Harley Quinn is actually real or not, we'll just have to wait until October 4th when the film is released in theaters. Let me know down below. Are you excited for this? How do you think Harley's going to play into this? Do you think she's real or do you think she's fake? I'm not sure. I'm leaning towards she's mostly real with some imaginary dream sequences, but let me know down below. Make sure that you like and subscribe for more nerd content and commentary. We'll be back here tomorrow with a brand new news segment, and I will see you guys then.